pop on here real quickly. The big discussion of the day is DC and Donald Trump and sending in the National Guard and all that. But I just think back, DC got home rule in 1973. I thought it was more recent than that. I thought it happened when Ford was president, but apparently it was in the waning days of the Nixon administration. 1973. They gave DC home rule, which turns out to be a pretty bad mistake. The city is nicknamed the District of Calamity. The only thing they're really good at is assessing fines and collecting tickets and raking in tax revenue. They can't seem to run the schools very well. The police department is kind of dicey, although there are a lot of good officers there, but they've got some problems in their leadership. And then, they can't fill the potholes. The streets look like crap. There are probably third world countries in around the world that have nicer roads than the the capital of the greatest nation in the world, the United States, Washington, D.C. Another thing that's being bantied about is the idea of D.C. statehood, which that would be a huge problem from a constitutional standpoint, but also, you hear the people in D.C., they've got their tags that say, you know, taxation without representation on the end of it, on the bottom of it. But the reality of it is they if they really want to have a member of Congress who has a vote, right now they have a delegate, Eleanor Holmes Norton, who doesn't have a vote. But if they really wanted representation in the Congress, the solution is not statehood. What you do is you take all the non-federal areas of Washington, D.C., like where people live, and everything north of the Potomac, which I don't believe there are any residential areas south of the Potomac. The only part of DC south of the Potomac is that big circular, I think I don't know if they call it the ellipse or what, but it's right near Arlington Cemetery. There's a big circle there and there's a bridge that goes over into DC. That little area right there is actually part of the district. It looks like it's on the Virginia side, and it is on the south side of the Potomac. It is still part of the district, but there are no houses there. But as far as I'm aware, every residential area in the district is north of the Potomac. So what you do is you cede that to Maryland. You say if you live in DC, you have a residential address, that's where you live, your apartment, your house, your condo, your townhouse, whatnot. You're in the district, then you have access to two senators from Maryland, both Democrats. You have access to at least one congressman from Maryland who's a Democrat. That solves that issue. Of course, the people pushing for statehood really don't care about the Constitution or representation or anything like that. They want DC to be a state so that it will have two more Democrat senators and at least one more Democrat member of Congress, which will throw off the balance of things. That's what they really want. They just really won't come out and say it. But anyway, DC, if you cannot run yourself as a city and you're just, totally incompetent and feckless the whole way through, why in the hell do you think they deserve to be a state? That's a no-go. But anyway, the Constitution wouldn't allow it. But if they really want to have representatives in Congress, then let them be part of Maryland in that respect. They're already north of the Potomac. They're geographically part of Maryland. It's kind of like Queens is actually on Long Island. A lot of people in New York don't really see it that way, but technically they are geographically, not culturally, but they're on Long Island. But anyway, as far as Trump, they say he has 30 days and then Congress can act. Well, one of the things they might want to consider doing is taking away home rule. If you give somebody 50 years to do something and they continually do it worse, and, being mayor of DC right now is kind of like being the biggest turd in the cesspool. They just have proven that they can't do it. Now, I'm not giving high marks to Congress for being effective or anything, but maybe taking away home rule is something that ought to be considered. And that's up to the people in Congress to decide that, not me, but it's just something they ought to consider. You know, when you keep doing the same thing over and over again and you get horrible results, then, you know, maybe it's time to think of something else. Uh, I think that the conspiracy theory side of me thinks that Trump is trying to have National Guard soldiers in and around D.C. because there might be some indictments coming and some famous people are going to be caught up in it, and they want to be able to stave off any riots or civil unrest that might happen. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I've kind of heard that, and these days, who knows? We live in some strange times. But anyway, that's my 2 cents for today. I hope you have a very good Thursday. I think I said Wednesday earlier. Ugh, God. Yes, it's Thursday. Auf Wiedersehen.